WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye. All right. Sorry I'm late, y'all. I had some serious technical difficulties this morning.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
All right. Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. And as we always do, let's get them started. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. Let me get my disclaimer out the way, y'all. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. All right, let's get them started. Had a tough morning. Okay. We are going to start, as we often do, with a little history. All right. Here we go. Okay, family, let me tell you something. This story sits at the crossroads of black genius and American hypocrisy. Her name is Ray Montague. And before we even talk about what she did, we have to talk about what America did to her. Ray Montague came of age in the Jim Crow South, where segregation wasn't just custom, it was law. Black minds were deliberately locked out of science, engineering, mathematics, and technology because white supremacy understood something very clearly. Knowledge is power. Ray Montague wanted to be an engineer. She had the mind for it. But the University of Arkansas, like countless institutions across this country, told her no. Not because she wasn't capable, not because she wasn't qualified, but because she was black. That wasn't accidental, that was policy. This was the same America that used black labor to build its wealth, black bodies to fight its wars, and black intellect when it was convenient, while systematically denying black people access to every education that fuels innovation. But oppression has never stopped black brilliance. It only forced it underground. Locked out of formal engineering programs, Ray Montague did what black people have always done in this country. She taught herself. This lady's amazing. In the 1950s and 60s, when computers were massive, rare, and closely guarded, she mastered computer programming on her own. No degree, no pipeline, no diversity initiative, just discipline, intelligence, and refusal. And then came 1971. The U.S. Navy, an institution soaked in tradition, hierarchy, and exclusion, faced a problem. Designing ships took 2 full years. Endless hand-drawn drafts, endless recalculations, millions wasted in time and money. Ray Montague looked at that system and said, "This is inefficient." So she did something no one in American naval history had ever done. She produced the first computer-generated ship design. Not a simulation, not a concept, a full functional design. I told you she was amazing. And she did it in 19 hours. 2 years collapsed into less than a day. Let's be very clear. This is not incremental progress. This is a technological rupture. Her work laid the foundation for computer-aided design, CAD, the backbone of modern engineering. Every ship, every aircraft, every advanced system designed today traces its lineage back to that moment. And who cracked the code? A black woman who America tried to deny her education. Only after she forced the system to confront her genius did the Navy award her the Meritorious Civilian Service Award, one of its highest civilian honors. But like so many black innovators before her, recognition came late, muted, and without the full weight it deserved. Because this country has always had a problem admitting a simple truth. Black excellence is not an exception. It's not an exception. It is the norm. From Benjamin Banneker to Katherine Johnson, from Lewis Latimer to Ray Montague, America has depended on black minds while pretending they didn't exist. Progress has never been stalled by black people. It's been stalled by racism. Ray Montague didn't just design ships. She exposed the lie that exclusion produces excellence. She proved that when black minds are unleashed, entire systems evolve. So when they ask why representation matters, this is why. When they ask why history must be told honestly, this is why. And when they wonder what America lost by locking us out, look at Ray Montague and multiply her brilliance by millions who never got the chance. Say her name. Ray Montague. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Hey, Sister Rhonda. All right. Good to see you there, Sister Tracy. Moving right along. WHGE 95.3 FM. All right. Moving right along. Let's deal with some foolishness. All right. The other day, I saw this dude interviewing the MAGA people, and he asked a simple question. If Jesus came back today, could he get into the country? You know, this MAGA woman stood right up there, dead serious, and said, yeah, if his paperwork was straight. If his Jesus. So what? We putting ice on? We're gonna put ice on Jesus now, huh? Look. Let me tell you something. I'm not a Christian, and open-eyed listener know where I stand. But I cracked the book a couple of times, which clearly she didn't. Because if Jesus comes back, it ain't gonna be like the last time. This ain't gonna be that Matthew chapter 3 verse 8. It's gonna be Revelations. Ain't gonna be no turn the other cheek. Ain't gonna be no up on the cross sequel. He ain't coming with loaves and fishes and wines and the community fish fry. He coming with the sword. Yeah, the magic one. Look, you ever seen the book the movie The Book of Eli with Denzel Washington? Yeah. Remember that bar scene? The gang surrounds him, and he started quoting scripture real calm, and then pull out a whole ass sword. Y'all, you seen that? Let me tell you something real. Let me tell you something. If you're about to fight somebody, and I'm talking about real hand-to-hand combat, no BS, and they start calmly reciting scriptures while y'all squaring up, let it go. Don't fight him. Leave immediately. Don't fight him. Because that's not going to be a fight. It's going to be a judgment. See, in the movie, he says scriptures, and then sling. He pull out a whole ass sword and make that noise to sling. That's your cue. It's time to go. Time to get the hell out of there. That's what I'm saying. Y'all got Jesus effed up. Didn't read the book. Didn't read the book. So you think ICE gonna roll on him like, yeah, sir, can we see your paperwork? And he gonna say, oh, my bad, officer, let me come. No, ain't gonna be no compliance. He gonna bless him with that sword. Whole generation of ICE ain't gonna be no fish fry, ain't gonna be no kumbaya, ain't gonna be no parables for comfort. It's gonna be that other part y'all like to ignore. It's gonna be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm Patrice Gibbs, WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye. Hey, Steve, my man. What's up, man? Yeah, I know I was late today. I had some technical difficulties and car problems, but I'm here now, damn it. All right, let's get it going. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Let me get serious here. It's just open season on our kids. Racist harassment of black students surges as Trump's education department looks the other way. Okay, I think I got that headline from the Grio. I think their analysis was a little weak, man. I read through and came up with my own stuff. Black students who experience racial harassment, bullying, disproportionate discipline, and other race-based discrimination in schools under Trump 2.0 are finding the education department is no longer as interested in holding the offenders of local school systems accountable. According to two separate recently published investigations by ProPublica and the Washington Post. I don't trust neither one of them, but anyway. What this is really about. Not just looking the other way. This is not bureaucratic neglect. This is policy design. Don't get it mixed. What ProPublica and the Washington Post document is the deliberate dismantling of civil rights enforcement. Key realities exposed. Civil rights enforcement has been intentionally disabled. Thousands of racial discrimination complaints dismissed. Only 14 new racial harassment investigations opened, while 500 plus complaints were filed. Over 300 OCR employees fired. 12 regional civil rights offices closed. No new resolution agreements for racial harassment, zero. That's not incompetence, that's sabotage. The federal government has reversed its moral target. Under Biden, focus on equal access, systemic bias, race-based harm. Under Trump, prioritize white grievance. Anti-CRT panic. Attacks on districts trying to correct racial disparities. Policing diversity itself as discrimination. Let me tell you what this story is really about: harassment, bullying, administrative backlog. No, it's just open season on our children. Let's stop dancing around this. Not failure of policy, this is policy. Hundreds of complaints of racial terror filed. 14 investigations open, 0 accountability agreements. Meanwhile, white kids get federal protection from feeling uncomfortable. The hell? And school districts get punished for daring to admit racism exists. This is not neutrality, this is allegiance. When black middle schoolers are called the N-word, told to go pick cotton, and forced to walk hallways while white kids play the sound of cracking whips on their phone, that is racial violence. It's not bullying. When a 12-year-old black boy is interrogated by police without his parents over a goddamn lie, that is criminalization, not discipline. When a black honor student is exiled for a pencil sharpener mistake for a vape, for a pencil sharpener being mistaken for a vape, that's not racial profiling. I mean, that is racial profiling. That's not school safety. And when the federal government knows all this and does nothing, it becomes complicit. Okay? Let's be clear. All right? Racial complaints wasn't streamlined, it was gutted. The investigators were fired, its offices were shut, its authority was neutralized. Why? Because when civil rights laws are enforced, racism has consequences, and this administration cannot afford consequences for its base. So now districts understand the message. You can ignore black parents, you can terrorize black students, you can bury complaints. Washington will protect you, not them. And what happens when authority disappears? Children hold slave auctions on Snapchat. Racist language becomes casual again. Discipline becomes punishment. Schools become pipelines, not the college, but the courtrooms. This is not accidental. This is reproduction. Racism isn't dying, it's being taught. And the federal government has decided not to interrupt the lesson. When Julie Hartman says the Trump administration is vigorously enforcing civil rights, understand that this is bureaucratic gaslighting. They are enforcing whose civil rights? Not black children, not disabled children, not communities of color. They are enforcing the right to discriminate without consequence. Which means this fight has been kicked back to the ground. The parents, communities, lawsuit, exposure, resistance. Because if the state won't protect our children, then the truth must. And here's the truth. When the government abandons black children, it forfeits its claim to moral authority. This is not just about schools. It's about who America is willing to sacrifice for comfort, power, and white innocence. And if history taught us anything, it's this. When they stop protecting our children, we stop pretending the system is neutral. Be for real. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Yeah, I gotta put my finger on the button before I say this. I ain't. Fuck Nicki Minaj. Yeah. For those of you on the air didn't hear that, tune in later when I rebroadcast. I really ain't got time for it, but some things I gotta address because it's so silly huzzy. And listen to that Janae, is that her name? Janae Monell, I think that's her name. The sister that she ripped her apart. You know, how racist does a society have to be for a law to be necessary just to allow black people, especially black women, to wear the hair that naturally grows out of their heads? And let me tell you exactly why this needs to be said right now. Because we just watched Nicki Minaj with her little sorry ass stand on a Turning Point USA stage and say with a straight face that black women are jealous of white women. Janelle Monáe, that's her. Thank you, Rhonda. Jealous. Not angry about discrimination, not exhausted by erasure, not resisting centuries of control. No, jealous. That statement is not just ignorant, it's historically illiterate and deeply insulting. And it plays perfectly into the very system that has spent centuries policing black women's bodies, beauty, and hair. Let's be clear. Black women are not jealous of white women. Black women are tired of being punished for being black women. White women do not rent free space in black women's minds. Black women rent free space in white women's minds. You ever heard that, seen them videos where you out in public as a black person, especially a black woman, you're never lonely? You know why? Because there's always some white person up in your goddamn business. Natural hair, coils, kinks, locks, braids, twists, afros has been officially labeled unprofessional, unkempt, unattractive. Meanwhile, white women can wear the same styles lifted directly off of black bodies and suddenly it's called high fashion, bold, and cutting edge. That's not jealousy, that's theft followed by praise. That's appropriation rewarded while the originators are penalized. And when Nicki Minaj parrots that talking point on a right-wing stage, what she's really doing is laundering white insecurity through a black mouth. This fear of black hair has never been about aesthetics. It's about control. It's about suppressing black presence, black confidence, and black cultural power. Look at history. One of the most powerful periods of African American history was the late 60s and early 70s. I was there. When we unapologetically embraced who we are, afros weren't trends. They were political statements. African attire wasn't costume. It's reclamation. We had rejected assimilation and said we would not shrink ourselves to make white America comfortable. And that terrified the system. And the obsession with regulating black women's hair didn't start there. It goes back to slavery. Black women braided maps in the cornrows to plan escapes. They hid seeds in the hair to survive freedom. They wrapped their heads under coercion, surveillance, and punishment. Which brings me to the tie-on laws. Okay, hey, Sherry. In 1786, Louisiana passed a law forcing black women, free and enslaved. They passed a law. They'll cover their hair in public. Why? Because black women were considered too attractive. Their natural hair and elegance drew white, French, and Spanish men. Instead of holding men accountable, the state punished or tried to punish black women. Sound familiar? That wasn't jealousy, that was fear. And even then, black women flipped the script. Y'all something else. They turned the tie-on into fashion. Bright modest cloth, jewels, elaborate wrapping styles that was meant to erase them only made them more visible, more beautiful, more defiant. And that pattern has never changed. What changed was the language. Today it's not the tie-on laws, it's dress codes, HR policies, school handbooks, and corporate professionalism. It's black girls suspended for braids. Black women denied jobs for locks. Black people told their hair is a distraction. That's why in 2025, we still need the Crown Act, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. Think about that. A law had to be written to say black people should not lose jobs, housing, education, or dignity because of their hair texture or protective styles. California passed it in 2019. Many states follow. At the federal level, still stalled, still debated. Because the same mindset that wrote tie-on laws still sits in boardrooms and legislatures. So no, Nicki Minaj, black women are not jealous of white women. Black women are angry that their natural existence has been criminalized while their culture is commodified. Black women are angry that what grows out of their head is called unprofessional until someone white wears it. Black women are angry that history keeps repeating itself and too many people are willing to lie about it for applause. Black hair is not a problem to be solved. Black hair is not a trend to be borrowed. Black hair is not a threat, it's a legacy. It's resistance, it's freedom growing straight out of the scalp. And no turning point stage, no talking point, no law, past or present, will ever change that. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. Okay, hey, look, let's rip the mask clean off this shit. Sorry, I got us in trouble. Bombing Nigeria on Christmas Day is not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. It's not counterterrorism. It's a message. It's a message that said African life is expendable. It's a message that says Christian rhetoric is just another weapon. It's a message that says empire still believes it has the divine right to rain fire on black people, even on the day it pretends to celebrate peace on earth. This wasn't about ISIS. That's the lazy lie they feed the public because they know Americans don't give a damn about Africa unless it's framed as terrorism. This is about resources, leverage, and control. See, Nigeria is sitting on massive oil and gas reserves, strategic access to Western trade routes, critical minerals needed for a so-called green economy, and a growing population that refuses to remain economically colonized. Plus, it's in a strategic position to the Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso. And when Africa starts asserting itself, the bombs follow. That's not policy, that's pattern. Let's talk about the real obscenity here. Weaponized Christianity. Trump and his ilk love to cosplay as defenders of the faith. But the moment their Christianity requires restraint, humility, peace, respect for black life, it disappears. Because Jesus didn't fly drones. Jesus didn't authorize airstrikes. Jesus didn't call African resistance terrorism while Roman-style legions enforced imperial order. But Rome did. And America has always seen itself as Rome reborn. Dropping bombs on Christmas Day is not just the moral symbolic domination. It's the empire saying your holy days don't mean a damn thing. Your sovereignty means nothing, and your lives mean less. And don't miss this. They call it protecting Christians. Yet it's black Christians getting vaporized, displaced, and destabilized. Funny how that works, ain't it? White Christianity is always worth defending. Black Christianity is always collateral damage. The same sick logic that justifies missionaries walking behind slave ships. Bibles handed out next to chains. Colonizers praying before massacres. Politicians invoking God before destroying an entire nation. Same demon, new language. And let's be clear. For anyone still confused, terrorism does not come from poverty. It comes from exploitation. It comes from stolen land, stolen labor, stolen futures. America helps create the conditions for extremism, then uses extremism as the excuse to steal even more. It's not security. That's organized global crime with a flag and a hymn. Black people around the world recognize this instinctively because we've lived it. From plantations to prison, from Jim Crow to drone strikes. We know a lynching when we see one, even when it comes from the sky. So no, this wasn't about saving souls. This was about controlling bodies, borders, and buried wealth. And history will record this plainly. Bombing Africa on Christmas Day in the name of Christ is not faith, it's blasphemy, it's empire, it's white supremacy with air power. Don't let them gaslight you. Empire always hides its greed behind God. Let's keep it moving. All right. Some stuff here. All right. Give me a second. I'm with you. Okay. All right. Now, I'm sure you heard that 60 Minutes tried to bury a story. Let's deal with that. We have to ask the question. If Watergate happened today, would our biggest news outlets even be allowed to run the story? Or would a billionaire owner decide that crossing the administration just isn't worth it for his bottom line? Yeah. And just like homegirl said, Sherry, about the last thing I was talking about. It's all just deflection in Niger and Burkina Faso too, and get control back from Ibrahim Touré. And moving right along. No wonder CBS didn't want you to see this. The story barriers. They interviewed Luis Munoz Pinto, a Venezuela college student. Not a criminal, not a gang member, not a terrorist, a student fleeing repression. And he did everything right. He waited in Mexico. He scheduled a legal asylum appointment with U.S. Customs and Borders and Border Protection. He entered the United States through the proper process. No criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. And during his interview, a U.S. official looked at him and said, "You are a danger to society." Based on nothing. No evidence, no charges, no hearing, no judge. We have to ask ourselves a question that should chill every person to the bone who still believes this country operates under the rule of law. You're getting a damn fool. If Watergate happened today, would our biggest news outlets even be allowed to run the story? And we got the answer. No wonder CBS didn't want you to see it. Yeah, that's right. 6 months. This young man. All right, 6 months. Locked up in the United States waiting for a decision that never came. No due process, no constitutional protection. Then he was deported. Not back to Venezuela, but rendered to El Salvador. One of 252 Venezuelans sent between March and April alone. He describes arriving at the so-called terrorism confinement center, a prison built for brutality. Hands and feet tied, forced to their knees, heads shaved, blood everywhere, screams, people crying, people vomiting and urinating on themselves from the terror. He said, when you get there, you already know you in hell. You don't need anybody to tell you. Then the guards began beating him. Fists, batons, walls. 4 guards grabbed him, beat him until his face bled, smashed his head against the wall, broke his tooth. This is not hearsay. This is not a rumor. This is sworn testimony. A man who followed the law, stripped of rights, disappeared, rendered, and tortured. And CBS killed the story. Ask yourself why. Because this isn't a border security story. This is a state-sanctioned human rights crime story. This isn't about safety. This isn't about power. This is about cruelty. The cruelty is the point. And when media corporations are owned by billionaires with regulatory interests, defense contracts, and political access, the truth becomes too expensive to broadcast. And this is what Congressman Greg Casar said. He was warning us about Watergate required a press willing to risk everything. Today, the press risks nothing and tells you even less. When legal asylum seekers are labeled dangerous without evidence, when constitutional rights evaporate at the border, when torture is outsourced and hidden, and when the media buries the proof, that's not national security, that's authoritarianism with better lighting. And if this can happen to him, it can happen to anyone the state decides is inconvenient. That's why they don't want you to see it. That's why they buried the story, and that's why we have to say it out loud. Because democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It's dismantled quietly by silence, by profit, by compliance. That's why we got to stay loud, stay woke. This is the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. All right. You got to hook it all in with history, you know what I'm saying? All right. The blueprint for state repression. Let's talk about COINTELPRO. Counterintelligence program, the United States government's own domestic war machine, aimed not at criminals, not at foreign agents, but its own citizens who dared to demand justice. From 1956 to 1971, the FBI wasn't just watching, they were sabotaging, they were infiltrating, they were engineering chaos with surgical precision. See, they got experience at this. This wasn't law enforcement. This was the state deciding who was allowed to dream of freedom and who needed to be crushed for daring to speak it aloud. COINTELPRO was a covert operation run by J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, whose mission was simple: surveil, infiltrate, discredit, and destroy political movements that threaten the status quo of white supremacy, capitalism, and imperial power. Not protect the public, not ensure safety, but protect the system by any means necessary. This wasn't passive observation. This was active warfare. Surveillance and wiretapping. Every phone call, every sermon, every meeting, every rally, monitored, recorded, and archived. Infiltration by informants. They didn't just watch movements, they joined them. Spies planted inside organizations, whispering poison, manufacturing conflicts, sabotaging trust, spreading false information and rumors, character assassinations, lies disguised as leaks, whisper campaigns that turn allies into enemies. Letters crafted to sound like they came from within, framing leaders, fabricating beef, sowing division. Threats, blackmail, home raids, job loss, constant pressure designed to break spirits and fracture communities. Then you have wrongful imprisonment, false charges, fabricated evidence, rigged trials, legal lynching with a paper trail. And then was inciting violence between so-called rival groups. The FBI didn't stop violence, they orchestrated it. Stoking beef between organizations, pitting factions against each other, letting blood spill so they could step back and say, see, they're the problem. This was psychological warfare. This was political sabotage. This was terrorism with a government badge. Sound familiar? I'll tell you some of their notable targets. Dr. King. The FBI tried to break him emotionally, politically, personally. They bugged his hotel room, stalked him, the FBI spread rumors, sent him threats, even mailed him a letter urging him to commit suicide. What that had to do with national security? Yes, state-sponsored anti-black hatred. The Black Panther Party. Yeah, I know a lot of us say, yeah, well, they weren't running around with them guns. Look, they weren't afraid of armed revolution. They were afraid of the Panthers feeding black children, building schools, providing health care, and organizing poor people across racial lines, because that's what they did. The FBI's goal was clear: neutralize the Panthers by any means necessary. Raids, murders, assassinations disguised as shootouts. The killing of Fred Hampton was COINTELPRO in its finest form. All right? Let's be clear, black activists, indigenous activists, anti-war organizers, immigrant right groups, labor movements, all were in the crosshair. And what was the impact? COINTELPRO wasn't just about dismantling movements, it was about rewriting history so future generations would know how close we came to real transformation. It taught the government one thing: repression works if people don't know it's happening. And it taught movements one thing: you cannot trust a system built to contain you. You know, what's the lesson today? COINTELPRO never really died. It just got new names, new technologies, new budgets, and new excuses. Mass surveillance, counterterrorism units targeting activists, police infiltrators at protests, algorithms flagging black and brown communities as high risk. It's just COINTELPRO 2.0. Because whenever oppressed people rise, the system responds the same way it always has. With fear, violence, sabotage, and lies. And that's why we study COINTELPRO. Not to mourn, but to stay alert. Not to fear, but to understand. Not to silence, but to stay woke. Keep your eye open. This is the open eye. Yes, D, Brother Charles. It's all about gold, uranium, and other minerals. Black people don't want anything. A big lie. Every time we build up, they tear us down. That's an actual fact, brother. Yes, indeed. All right. Let's get to how slimy these people are. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is the Open Eye. Let's talk about alleged crimes. Hey, Sister Ruth. Let's talk about alleged crimes. Exposes serial abusers. Speaking freely, speaking confidently, speaking as if protection was assumed. Then comes one of the most disturbing alleged accounts in the entire file set. Talking about them Epstein files. All right. I got this right. Okay. A limousine driver in Fort Worth allegedly reported to the FBI that he transported a woman in the 1990s who claimed she had been sexually assaulted by both Trump and Epstein. She allegedly told him she is afraid to go to the police because they will kill me. That woman was later found dead, allegedly with her head blown off. Officers at the scene reportedly stated there was no possible way it was a suicide, and yet it was ruled a suicide anyway. That alone should have triggered a national reckoning. It didn't. And then there's the allegation that cannot be spoken of lightly, but cannot be ignored. A woman told the FBI that in 1984, when she was 13 years old, Trump allegedly paid money to force her into sexual acts. And this is critical. She further alleged that Trump was present when her uncle murdered her newborn infant and disposed of the body in Lake Michigan. Let me repeat this with precision. This is an alleged murder of a newborn child contained in an FBI report, ignored, buried. What follows are allegations, They are alleged crimes. They appear in officially released Justice Department and FBI documents. They are not rumors pulled off the internet. They are not AI fabrications. They are not TikTok conspiracies. They are allegations preserved in government files. Files that were late, incomplete, suspiciously redacted, and in some cases, quietly removed after public release. And now that we've established that, let's talk about why America is not nearly angry enough. It's been over a week since the first batch of Epstein-related files were released. Since then, 2 more batches have come out. After the Justice Department already missed its legal deadline and remains in contempt of Congress, that alone should set off alarms. Instead, what we got was silence, deflection, and protection. And what did the documents reveal? That Donald J. Trump is allegedly named in the Epstein files. Not casually, not in passing, not in some distant social acquaintance, but repeatedly and during the period that Epstein was most actively abusing children. According to one alleged letter from the U.S. Attorney, Trump was allegedly on Epstein's plane more often than previously reported, including flights where women were present who could be alleged witnesses in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. And that the attorney explicitly states this information was provided for situational awareness, so there would be no surprise down the road. Ask yourself, why a federal prosecutor would write something like that? Then there's another alleged correspondent, this one between Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Nassar, a convicted child predator, that's what he hung out with, where Epstein allegedly states that Trump shares their love of young nubile girls. Let that sink in. 2 men already uninvestigated. A newborn baby, not an abstraction, not a token point, not a slogan, a child. And now let's talk to MAGA. Let's talk to Republicans. Let's talk to right-wing, fake-ass Christians. After this, at the allegations of child rape, at the allegations of trafficking, at the allegations of covering up deaths, at the allegations involving the alleged murder of a newborn infant, you do not get to say the words right to life. You have forfeited any moral language. You do not get to scream about protecting children while defending a man whose name appears in documents describing the systemic abuse of children. You do not get to clutch your Bible while excusing alleged infanticide because it's politically inconvenient. You do not get to call yourself pro-life when your loyalty requires you to dismiss the possibility that a baby was murdered and dumped into a lake. That's not Christianity. That's not morality. That's idolatry. And to those saying, don't believe everything you hear. No. What you're really saying is this: don't believe what threatens my comfort. You believe whatever he says. You dismiss whatever documents say. You accept denial over evidence. You accept power over truth. And you don't insult people's intelligence by crying AI. AI didn't exist when these reports were written. AI didn't testify. AI didn't file affidavits. AI didn't redact documents. The government did that shit. And here's the final truth that terrifies people. If even half these allegations are true, then the President of the United States allegedly committed capital crimes, including murder. And the entire political system has spent decades, I'm going to get to that, political system spent decades protecting him. There are over 1 million files still unreleased. 1 million! You ain't got to go no further with the crap that's already out there. And the most damning indictment of all is this: we're not angry enough. Not for the children, not for the victims, not for the baby who never got to live, not for the truth. And until we are, justice still remains buried right alongside that alleged newborn in Lake Michigan. Now I got a question. Where are the Democrats? So now we've addressed MAGA. Now that we dismantled the fake Christians. Now that we laid bare the alleged crimes, the buried files, the silenced victims, and the alleged murder of a newborn infant. One question: where the hell are the Democrats? Because silence in the face of this is not neutrality, it's collaboration. You cannot spend years telling us you are the adults in the room, the party of decency, the defenders of democracy, and then suddenly develop lockjaw when allegations involve someone too powerful to touch. Where are the emergency hearings? Where are the subpoenas with teeth? Where's the nonstop demand for every single Epstein file, unredacted, unfiltered, unprotected? Where in the hell is the urgency? Because if the allegations involve anyone else, the Democratic Party would be holding wall-to-wall press conferences, marching the microphones, tweeting threads, leaking briefings to every outlet in the country. But now it's quiet. Too quiet. Let's be honest about what's happening. The Democrats aren't confused. They aren't unaware. They aren't waiting for more information. They're calculating. They're afraid of what full exposure will reveal, not just about Trump, but about the entire rot of the political class. Because Epstein didn't traffic in a vacuum. He trafficked in a system that protected wealth, power, and political insulation on both sides of the aisle. Don't get it mixed. So instead, Democrats hide behind procedure. They hide behind decorum. They hide behind the words norm. If it norm means anything, when children are allegedly raped, women are allegedly silenced, and a newborn infant is allegedly murdered and discarded. What kind of norm demands silence in the face of that? Democrats love to say we believe survivors. Do you? Do you? Because believing survivors doesn't mean believing them only when it's politically convenient. It doesn't mean believing them when the accused is poor, black, foreign, or already disposable. Believing survivors mean believing them when the accused wears a suit, commands a cult, and sits at the top of American power. Anything less is performance. And let me be crystal clear. If Democrats continue to whisper while Republicans scream denial, then history will not remember this as a failure of the right alone. It will remember it as a bipartisan moral collapse. Because when confronted with allegations this severe, this grotesque, this unforgivable, there are only two positions. You either demand total exposure or you are complicit in the cover-up. There's no third lane. So I ask again slowly for the people in the cheap seats. Where are the Democrats when a newborn child is allegedly murdered and the accusation is buried? Where are the Democrats when over 1 million files remain sealed? Where are the Democrats when the Justice Department misses deadlines, redacts names, protects politically exposed persons, and expects the public to just move on? Where are the Democrats when justice is inconvenient? Because if you can't find your voice now, don't ever ask us to trust you again when you claim to stand for truth, accountability, or human life. The children deserve better. The victims deserve better. The country deserves better. And silence, no matter who it comes from, is still betrayal. Oh, you think I'm kidding? Let's look at what they've been doing here. Because Representative Jamie Raskin said Sunday that Democrats are considering various avenues of recourse after the Trump administration released a trove of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein that included heavy redactions. In an interview on CNN's State of the Union, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee said members of his party are still weighing their options, but said it's not clear that we've got standing to sue the Trump administration to release the rest of the files. When asked about a potential lawsuit, that's some weak, mealy-mouthed BS. Raskin didn't say a goddamn thing about investigating the alleged murder of an infant. Mealy-mouthed cowardice in a time of alleged infanticide. So let's talk about what Democrats are calling leadership. All right? Representative Jamie Raskin goes on CNN, tells the country that Democrats are considering various avenues of recourse after the Trump administration dumped heavily redacted Epstein files. Considering avenues, that's the language you use when someone missed a parking regulation. Not when government files include allegations of child rape, sex trafficking, witness intimidation, suspicious deaths, and the alleged murder of a newborn infant. I can't get off of that. And then comes the real insult. It's not clear that we've got standing. Standing? A newborn child is allegedly murdered, dumped in Lake Michigan, and the top Democrat in the House Judiciary Committee is worried about procedural standing. Let me be perfectly clear. You don't need standing to investigate. You don't need standing to hold hearings. You don't need standing to subpoena witnesses. You don't need standing to demand unredacted files. You don't need standing to refer criminal allegations to state and federal prosecutors. You need a goddamn backbone. And that's exactly what's missing. What Raskin did not say is far more damaging than what he did. He didn't mention the alleged murder of an infant. The alleged disposal of a newborn's body. The alleged failure of law enforcement to investigate. The alleged cover-up across decades. The moral emergency of crimes against children. Not one word, no outrage, no urgency, no demand for justice for a dead baby. Lawyer talk. Process. Just delay. That's not leadership. That's institutional cowardice. Let's stop pretending this is complicated. If these allegations involve a poor black man or someone without power, the system would already be grinding them to dust. And there would be no considering options. There would be no concern about optics. There would be no hesitation. But when the allegations touch the powerful, suddenly everyone becomes cautious. Suddenly everyone wants to slow down. Suddenly due process becomes an excuse for doing nothing. And that's how cover-up works. Let me say this plainly to Jamie Raskin and every Democrat hiding behind him. If you cannot say the words alleged murder of a newborn infant out loud, then you are not fit to chair, rank, or sit on any committee tasked with justice. Because justice does not begin with strategy meetings. Justice begins with moral clarity. And moral clarity would sound like this. These files contain allegations of the murder of a newborn child. We will not rest. We will not delay. We will not hide behind procedure until every fact is uncovered. But instead, we got CNN-approved mush. So now the question sharpens. Are Democrats afraid of Trump? Or are they afraid of what a real investigation would expose about their own complicity, their own silence, and their own proximity to power? Because Epstein wasn't protected by Republicans alone. He was protected by a system. And systems don't protect themselves without help. Silence is help. Delay is help. Weak statements are help. If Democrats want to know why people are angry, why trust is collapsing, why institutions are disintegrating, this is why. Because when a newborn baby is allegedly murdered and your response is we're considering our options, you have already failed the most basic test of humanity. History will not remember the redactions. It will remember the silence. This is the Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Hey, Regina. Good to see you there. All right. An hour went on by. All right. Yeah, I know. I got excited, but feel my passion. Because when a newborn infant is murdered, and the best you got is considering options, shame on you. I hope you learned something today, because I learned something before I got here. That's word. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This is the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining me. Peace. All right. That's our show today. Glad to see everybody showed up. Sorry I was so late today. But as I always tell you, as I always close, global African supremacy. Don't let these little setbacks hold us back. All right. Peace and love.